Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And today I'm running it back with Boom, Bust, or Believable, where I'm going to continue to break down the Big Ten men's basketball teams and their outlook for the rest of the season. Next on the list is preseason number 2, the Illinois Fighting Illini. So they're currently sitting at 16-7 and 7-4 in the Big Ten, which is good for second in the Big Ten, 3 games behind my Purdue Boilermakers. Some key players for them this season have been, first off, 2 transfers. Terrence Shannon Jr., who's currently sitting at 17.4 points, 5.4 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, as well as 1.3 steals per game. Matthew Meyer, who's currently sitting at 11.3 points, 4.9 rebounds, 1.3 blocks per game, and is shooting 37.6% from 3, a little up from his numbers in the past couple of years. Dane Danger, who has emerged for them as a forward at 10 points, 5.9 rebounds, 1.4 blocks per game. He's shooting 69.8% from the field, which with elevated shot attempts would put him up with, some of the highest in the country. Shooting almost 70% from the field is very difficult to do. And another guy who's been coming up very clutch for them lately has been Jaden Epps, a freshman guard, at 9.7 points, 2.1 rebounds, and 1.6 assists per game, while shooting 84% from the free throw line, which is good to lead their team. Taking a look at their KenPom rankings, they currently sit at 55th in offensive efficiency. So they've been fluctuating a bit, but their offense has its ups and downs. Where they really stand true is their defense. Their adjusted defensive efficiency sits at 14th. When they play good defense, they typically have a lot better success, and they have been doing that a lot more as of lately. And those combined lead to an adjusted efficiency margin of 21st in the country. Where we look at their adjusted tempo, which is their possessions per 40 minutes, and they're at 66th. So they definitely get up and down the floor. They're not necessarily quite the slow it down and run your offensive sets kind of team, and they do enjoy getting out in the break. Their strength of schedule puts them at 53rd, so they have played some pretty good teams this year. But once again, similar to Indiana, not necessarily up there with some of the best in the country. But taking a look at some of their key wins and losses, they've obviously had a very up and down season. To start the year, they had some very good wins, one of those being against UCLA in Las Vegas in one of those early season tournaments, 79-70. At the time, UCLA was ranked top 10 in the country. So that looks like a very good win for them, and UCLA has gotten back to that point. They beat Texas 85-78 in overtime on December 6th in Madison Square Garden in New York, which Texas was number 2 in the country at the time. Now, they've had some ups and downs in their season, but still a fantastic win for them. But they struggled during the middle of the season somewhere. And they had a loss at home against Penn State, 74-59 on December 10th, which is sort of the beginning of where they had some struggles there midseason, as well as a loss against Missouri in the bragging rights game in St. Louis, 93-71 on December 22nd. So that was a really tough one. And that was sort of that middle of the season is where you started to see some issues. But this team is entirely different than the Illinois team we saw last year. They lost a ton of talent at the end of last year. I'm going to read this list, but it's quite a list. They lost the likes of Trent Frazier, Kofi Coburn, Jacob Grandison, who transferred to Duke, Andre Curbelo, who transferred to St. John's, Alfonso Plummer, Omar Payne, who transferred to Jacksonville, Brandon Pajimski, who transferred to St. Clair, who's also having a pretty great season there, Benjamin Bozeman-Verdonk, who transferred to South Carolina, and DeMonte Williams. That's 9 players. To lose 9 players off of your roster is pretty unheard of in terms of college basketball, but welcome to the day and age with the transfer portal. But to make up for some of that, they added 2 freshman guards in Sky Clark, who was ranked number 9 nationally for his class. He's had his moments here and there, and Jaden Epps, who we talked about, who has turned out to be significantly better thus far, at least, than Sky Clark. They added freshman forward Ty Rogers, who really hasn't done very much other than he is playing 15 minutes per game. And of course, there are 2 big transfers, Terrence Shannon Jr. from Texas Tech and Matthew Meyer from Baylor. So with a lot of losing a lot of those guys and bringing so many of those guys in, one of the things they've struggled with is their sort of identity and mentality earlier on this year when they were having some of their biggest struggles. We heard some interesting comments made from both their head coach, Brad Underwood, and players like Matthew Meyer in their post-game press conferences, leading to questions about the team's unity, since they seem to kind of publicly divide themselves and blame each other rather than handle things behind closed doors inside their locker room, which is really how most teams prefer to handle it. But they really have seemed to turn things around lately. They've won 7 of their last games in the month of January, with their only loss being a 15-point home loss against Indiana on the 19th, who's also playing very good basketball as of late. Their overarching issue that we really have seen with them, or at least when they've struggled this year, is their ball movement and spacing. So oftentimes when they're not really getting going offensively, they resort to a lot of one-on-one play, which kills their efficiency even further and kind of continues to dig that hole. When they get the ball moving around the front court, they tend to get much higher percentage shots, which they've managed to do a lot better as of lately. As they head into February, the Fighting Illini will go to Iowa City on Saturday, February 4th to take on the Hawkeyes, and Tuesday, February 7th to take on the Minnesota Golden Gophers at home as they continue to look on building this past month's success. But that is going to be all for us today. I'm going to keep breaking down more of these Big Ten teams as we go down the list. And here on the channel, we have covered tons of the NFL playoffs, and we're going to continue to do that as we head towards the Super Bowl. So if you want other videos from us, go on the channel. And until then, like and subscribe. Peace.